Well, guys and girls, it's finally time. I procrastinated pretty damn hard on this one for reasons I will bring up later, but today we are going to take a look at how far Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen would get in Dragon Ball according to my very unprofessional opinion. So I mentioned just now that I was kind of reluctant to make this video. The real main reason for this being that Sukuna is one of the two people the JJK community or Jujutsu Kaisen community just sucks off with the power of 1,000 throats. And it also happens that the JJK community is one of the very few fandoms I find the most annoying to deal with on like a personal level. There are very few fandoms I find truly annoying to deal with, but JJK is definitely one of them. The reason why I am straight up telling you this at the beginning of this video is to make sure that people won't use the argument that I lowball Sukuna because I dislike the fandom. So I'm telling you this right now, even though I don't particularly like the JJK fandom, I won't let that influence the decisions of this video. I will objectively look at Sukuna's abilities and give you my honest take on how far I think he would get. But with that out of the way, let's take a look at who Sukuna is for the people who have never seen or read JJK. The old man Sukuna is a sorcerer from centuries ago who was regarded as the king of curses. Just think, if Gojo is the strongest sorcerer of today, then Sukuna is the strongest sorcerer in history. Sukuna was quite literally unbeatable. He defeated every single sorcerer who dared oppose him. Eventually, Sukuna managed to incarnate himself by transforming his curse energy into 20 indestructible cursed fingers. It is unknown if Sukuna made a pact with Kenjaku or if he did this all by himself, but that's just part of the mystery that surrounds him, I suppose. In the modern age of 2018, Sukuna inhabits Yuji Itadori after he consumed one of the cursed fingers which held Sukuna. Being trapped in the body of the young man, the story begins. So, as stated before, Sukuna is the strongest sorcerer in history. His base stat total in his own universe is monstrously high. It is very fair to say that even if you count Gojo, not a single sorcerer is anywhere close to how powerful Sukuna is. I mean, he even beat Gojo, which is saying a lot for his in-universe power scaling. I personally feel very comfortable with putting him as the strongest character in Jujutsu Kaisen up till now. He has your standard package of being much stronger and much faster than ordinary humans. In the case of Sukuna, he is also much faster than most of the other sorcerers, surprising a majority of them with his insane speed and strength. But his most interesting passive skill is the way his body is built. He has 2 sets of arms and 2 mouths, which normally would be pretty meh, like okay, cool. But he can use the 2 of his arms to counter attacks, whilst the other 2 arms perform hand signs in unison, and he can also use the second mouth to continuously chant empowered words with no drawbacks. This is basically a massive cheat code against other sorcerers, but it is also something that has given him the title of King of Curses. He's a cheater, technically, I suppose, but a damn good one. Just like Gojo and some other sorcerers, Sukuna can also use the Black Flash technique. To those who don't know, very brief explanation, the Black Flash technique occurs when a curse user uses curse energy 0.000001 seconds after landing a physical hit. It's a pretty arbitrary number that was chosen, but you know, that's the way it's described. But this technique causes their curse energy to flash black and increases the power of the attack by roughly 2.5 times. Sukuna can pretty much do this effortlessly. Sukuna also has various signature techniques which he uses to fight. I'll just list off a couple of them here so you get the basic gist of how he fights. His full description will be in the description down below, where I just linked to the wiki page which has documented all of his attacks. First up, we have his Dismantle skill, which is his real basic ranged attack. It's the one he probably uses the most. It is a slash attack that works very well against curses and sorcerers. He later on upgrades these attacks to pretty much fit the description of slashes that cut the world. Please do note that this does not mean that he can literally cut the planet in half. Like, he is nowhere near a planet buster. Really, no one in JJK is even close to that level of power for now, because we obviously don't know what happens in the future, but for now, definitely not planetary. But moving on to his Cleave technique, which is another slash style attack, but this one does adjust itself to the target's durability. He can only use this technique when making direct contact with the target, the sole exception to this rule being if he has his domain expansion up. He can also do pretty funny things with his cleave technique, such as shaping it like a spiderweb and collapsing the ground around him. It's a pretty malleable technique, and do keep in mind that Sukuna has had many years to just pretty much experiment with this, so he probably has multiple other variations of this technique that we have just simply not seen yet. Alongside his slashing techniques, Sukuna is also a master firebender due to his divine flame. He can create a flaming bow and arrow and fire flame arrows at his targets. As far as I understand, he can only use this technique after he has already cast Cleave and Dismember. Maybe I'm just forgetting, I don't know the exact reason for this, but I swear like he can only use this after he used his techniques, so do correct me if I'm wrong on this, but he has the ability to use it, even though I think it's only after using these techniques. Just roast my ass if I got this one wrong, but as far as I remember, it was kind of like that. But he can also summon several familiars using his shadow as an intermediary to summon them. This is a technique he picked up after inhabiting the body of Megumi. These Shikigami include the likes of Maoraga and Agito. Like many other sorcerers, Sukuna also has access to the reverse curse technique. He can heal almost any injuries, including stuff like lost limbs. He can even repair his own soul with this technique, making him pretty hard to kill through any conventional methods. But you can't talk about abilities and Jujutsu Kaisen without mentioning the domains. Sukuna also has a domain to examine. His domain is called the Malevolent Shrine. Sukuna's domain is a bit different from the others, because instead of creating a separate space using a barrier, it instead manifests in the area itself. Malevolent Shrine creates a wide area where everyone inside of it is mercilessly and continuously attacked with Sukuna's Cleave and Dismantle attacks. Sukuna further strengthens this domain by making a binding vow. By allowing an escape route to exist within the shrine, the range of the domain is expanded to roughly 200-ish meters. So to sum it up, this means that someone needs to move about 100 meters in any direction whilst dodging an unending barrage of attacks. Like, I don't have to explain that this is a pretty strong ability overall. But he can also modify his domain to a certain degree. By using what is known as domain amplification, he can compress his domain into an aura that surrounds his body. This is what allowed him to bypass Gojo's Infinity due to targeting the entire world with his cleave instead of just Gojo. By cleaving Infinity, he also cut Gojo clean in half. Don't ask me how this makes exact sense, because it really doesn't make a ton of it, but it is what happened. Oh, and he can also protect himself from other domains by creating a specific barrier that blocks them out. So that was a brief summary of Sukuna's abilities, but how far would these abilities carry him in the world of Dragon Ball? To start off, even though cursed energy does not exist in Dragon Ball, I will obviously let him have access to it, because it would be completely asinine to just take away his primary form of power, like, come on now. But before we start, I need to write off some quote-unquote hack characters. Boss Rabbit would not be able to turn Sukuna into a carrot simply because I don't think there's a way Sukuna would let this weird rabbit man touch him. Like, I don't think it's a very viable outcome. And Devilman's Devilmite Beam would also not work because I am 99% sure Sukuna can just reverse curse technique his heart back to full health. If we simply talk in terms of raw power, I think Sukuna would fit perfectly right in with guys like Demon King Piccolo. Both are around the city level of destruction, but if you were to put full power Sukuna and full power Demon King Piccolo against one another, I do kind of think that Sukuna has the slight edge, if only due to having more techniques that could catch Demon King Piccolo off guard. It's mainly his domain expansion that is something I feel Demon King Piccolo could fall to. I mean, he is cocky enough to just let Sukuna use it if you were to ask me. And if you're wondering, what about drum, what about tambourine? I mean, Sukuna also has Agito and Maoraga. Like, I think that these two characters are pretty similar in the fact that they can also have minions, and I think the minions would duke it out whilst King Piccolo fights Sukuna. But I doubt it would be a very easy fight. Just like how Sukuna could heal himself with his reverse curse technique, we can assume pretty safely that Demon King Piccolo also has access to the Namekian's ability to regenerate injuries. We have never seen him use the ability, but he should have access to it. He is a Namekian. Honestly, this would be an incredibly sick fight to see because I genuinely believe that these two are very equal to one another. But there are two small issues, I suppose, with this saga. Both Roshi and Tien could use the evil containment wave to trap Sukuna, and Roshi at full power should be a moonbuster even in this saga. For the evil containment wave part, this is honestly a coin flip because I personally don't like using this as a crutch to just cap every single villain at, because sure, theoretically theoretically the power difference can be light and day, but the Mafuba still seals the enemy. The problem is that this technique can be countered pretty easily too. You can dodge it, you can destroy the prepared vessel. Once you have seen the technique once, it has a very low chance of working on you again. You can throw someone in between yourself and the attack, like Sukuna could easily use one of his familiars for this, etc. The technique is very strong, I'll admit that, but it's nowhere near uncounterable. Then we have Roshi being a moonbuster. In order to blow up the moon, Roshi has to power up over a pretty long period of time and break his limits. I personally believe that Sukuna would have ample opportunity to interrupt Roshi powering up. He can also use his domain for this once again. The fight with Demon King Piccolo is really the first difficult fight he would encounter. And although I believe he would win here, he would not get much further than here. Piccolo Jr. would absolutely shit all over Sukuna, and even if he manages to somehow beat him by a miracle of God, Raditz will have his ass for dinner. Sukuna, from what I've read and seen, is around low city level, which is a pretty vague description, I know. But in Dragon Ball terms, I'd put him at about Demon King Piccolo level. Like, maybe he would be physically a bit weaker, but he has his techniques to back him up. And for the sake of this video, I will rank him at the 24th World Tournament Saga, where he would get destroyed beyond belief by Piccolo Jr. But you might argue that this is lowballing him due to me having Gojo much higher on the list. The reason for that is because A, Gojo's Infinity is a much stronger defensive technique that is better for just surviving fights. And B, Gojo is very difficult to place fairly, and I honestly do think that I've placed him far too high. You know what? I am actually going to drop his ass down to the Saiyan Saga now that I think about it. Even if you argue that no one can hit him, he is not doing any type of damage to Nappa or Vegeta either, so yeah, I mean, kind of retconning myself here, I suppose, but I don't think it's fair to have him that high up, because yeah, I just don't see it. Like, realistically, what type of damage is he doing to Vegeta? None. He's not touching him. And I know that a lot of JJK fans who suck these two guys off on a daily basis will not agree with this, but come on, man, like, Dragon Ball is filled with planet-busting monsters. You can't expect a series which considers destroying cities or countries as incredible feats to properly compete. Like, I would love to be able to say, oh, Sukuna beats Frieza, but it's just not true. This video was just me viewing Sukuna's powers objectively and giving my honest opinion on where I think he would hit any type of wall. Could I be wrong on this? Sure, but if you say that this guy makes it to shit like Cell, you are simply delusional and you're coping hard. But that is enough ranting from me for today, guys. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my videos. It really does mean a lot. I say this every video, I know, but it really does brighten my day. If you liked today's video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe and hit the bell icon to never miss another video ever again. Work hard, study well and eat and sleep plenty, and I will see you all again in the next video. Peace out.